In every age of history, there were punishments meant to scare people. But some were created not just to punish, but to break a human being slowly. This is the story of one of the most feared devices ever constructed. The Coffin Torture, a punishment where the victim wasn't beaten, stabbed, or burned. They were simply trapped, and the trap did all the work. Imagine standing in a metal cage shaped exactly like the human body. Not big enough to sit, not wide enough to move, not soft enough to rest. Only iron, cold, unrelenting iron pressed against your skin. The first breath feels normal. The 10th breath feels heavy. By the 100th breath, the air smells like rust, sweat, and fear. And the victim realizes there is no escape. The Coffin Torture appeared during a time when justice was public entertainment. Markets filled with noise. Carts rolled across cobblestone streets, and children ran past shopkeepers. But hanging above the square, a metal coffin swayed in the wind. It was a warning to everyone who dared to defy the law. This cage wasn't meant to kill instantly. No. It was designed to keep the victim alive, long enough for their suffering to become the message. The authorities believed that a slow punishment was far more powerful than a quick one. At sunrise, the cage would be opened. A criminal, sometimes a thief, sometimes a smuggler, sometimes someone accused of defying the government, would be brought in chains. The crowd gathered not out of pity, but out of curiosity. Some whispered, some laughed, some pointed at the victim like they were a lesson carved from iron. The guards forced the prisoner inside the human-shaped cage. Hands locked, legs locked, neck tightened. The iron door slammed shut. And suddenly, the world became a prison, the size of the human body. The first hour was discomfort. The third hour became pain. By sunset, the victim's body felt like it was collapsing into itself. But the true torture wasn't the body. It was the mind. Inside the coffin, every sound echoed strangely. The heartbeat became loud. The breath became shallow. The mind started to panic in the darkness. The victim tried to lean forward. The iron stopped them. They tried to lean back. The iron stopped them again. They tried to rest their head. The cage denied them every comfort. The world continued outside. Traders shouted. Bakers sold bread. Children laughed. But for the person trapped inside, time stopped. As night fell, the temperature dropped. Cold crept through the cage like an invisible predator. The victim's bones shivered, their muscles cramped, and their breath turned into mist. Yet they remained hanging in the air, unable to protect themselves from the freezing wind. Some cages were placed near forests. Wolves howled. Stray dogs circled the area. Ravens perched on the bars, curious about the helpless figure inside. The authorities believed that fear was more powerful than chains. And the Coffin Torture was created to spread fear, slowly, silently, without spilling a drop of blood. This was only the beginning of the nightmare. The second phase of the Coffin Torture was the slow breakdown of the human body. But what made this punishment terrifying was how ordinary everything looked. No flames, no whips, no knives. Just a cage and time. Hours inside the coffin felt like entire days. Every minute added weight to the victim's suffering. The rigid position restricted blood flow. Feet swelled, legs numbed, arms tingled painfully. The spine pulsed with sharp bursts of agony. But the prisoner couldn't shift, bend, or kneel to relieve it. The cage was shaped precisely to prevent escape, but also shaped to prevent rest. Some versions had spikes, Not sharp enough to pierce the skin, but sharp enough to prevent leaning. If the prisoner tried to shift their body, the spikes pressed into them, forcing them upright again. In the heat of summer, the metal turned into a furnace. The cage absorbed sunlight, cooking the prisoner slowly. Sweat rolled down their face, their throat dried, their lips cracked. The heat suffocated more than the iron ever could. On the coldest days, the metal drained warmth from the prisoner's body. Fingers stiffened, teeth chattered uncontrollably, muscles cramped so painfully that some victims fainted from shock. The psychological torment was even worse. Inside the cage, there was no sense of time. No sunrise or sunset, just endless suffering. The victims sometimes hallucinated images of home, voices of loved ones, whispers of freedom. But when they opened their eyes, iron still surrounded them. The crowd outside treated the hanging cage like a public display. Some societies believed fear kept order. People pointed at the prisoner and said, "This is what happens when you break the law." They used human suffering as a reminder, a warning, a lesson. The victim begged for water. Guards rarely listened. The prisoner begged for mercy. The authorities felt none. By the second night, the victim's body began shutting down. Their mind drifted between consciousness and exhaustion. Their voice faded. Their strength dissolved. But the iron cage didn't release them. Food wasn't given. Rest wasn't allowed. Comfort didn't exist. Some victims survived 2 days. The stronger ones survived 3. A rare few endured even longer. Unable to die quickly because the cage kept them upright, preventing collapse. The authorities didn't need to hurt the prisoner. Time did everything. The iron did the rest. As the victim weakened, they felt the world slipping away. Shadows blurred. Sounds merged into distant echoes. The body trembled uncontrollably. And eventually, the prisoner could no longer hold their head up. But the cage held them upright, allowing suffering to continue even when the body was failing. The end was never sudden. It came slowly, quietly, until one final breath escaped the metal shell. But the story didn't end there. When the cage finally stopped swaying and the victim inside no longer moved, the authorities returned. They opened the iron coffin and removed what remained. A silent reminder of what fear could do when given power. But the purpose of the coffin torture wasn't just death. It was domination. It was control. It was a message carved into steel. Obey or suffer. The empty cage was cleaned, repaired, and hung again, ready for the next prisoner. To the people in power, it was a useful tool. To the crowd, it was a spectacle. But to history, it became a symbol of human cruelty. However, not every victim placed inside was guilty. Rumors tell stories of innocent men and women accused falsely, political rivals punished in silence, and common citizens punished for refusing orders. And once locked inside the cage, truth and lies became equally meaningless. All that mattered was the iron. Over time, societies changed. People questioned the purpose of torture. Some argued that fear creates obedience, not justice. Others believed such punishments damaged the soul of the nation using them. Slowly, the world moved forward, abandoning cruel devices one by one. Kings fell, empires collapsed, laws evolved, and the coffin torture disappeared from public squares. Today, only a few rusted cages remain in deep museum halls. Some hang from ceilings. Some sit on stone floors, covered in dust. Visitors walk past them quietly, trying to imagine what it felt like to stand inside. to feel iron on every side, to breathe air that tasted like rust, to beg for relief that never came. The Coffin Torture reminds us that a punishment doesn't to need blades or fire to destroy a person. Sometimes, the worst suffering is the kind that steals hope slowly, second by second, hour by hour, until nothing remains. It teaches a lesson that has echoed through centuries. When justice becomes cruel, society begins to rot from within. When punishment becomes entertainment, humanity fades. And when fear becomes law, the world becomes a cage. The iron coffin stands as a warning, rusted, silent, and unchanging. A symbol of the darkest corners of human power, a device that turned people into displays, a memory of a time when suffering was a message carved into steel. And though the cage is empty now, the story it carries is not forgotten. It asks one question to every generation that passes. What kind of world are we building? One where people are lifted up, or one where they are locked away in cages of fear? History has shown us both paths. The choice, as always, belongs to us. Subscribe us for more historical stories.